The reason founders struggle to convert is not because their product isn't good. It's because their story has no spine. Beauty is noise. Clarity, that's bank account. You are the director of your movie, of your business, so please stop acting like a stylist with hex codes and palettes. It's time to script your blockbuster. Your storyboard is live. It's a new offer. All details in the show notes.
The truth is that if you abandon brand on the front end, you're going to have a brand. It's just not going to be the one you wanted.
Yeah.
And it's not going to take you where you want to go.
You're making me cry.
You could end up in the same place, but
if your brand doesn't have the logic to scale, it doesn't have the substance to survive. Today, I'm joined by fellow brand strategist Charlie Birch. Charlie Birch is the founder of Humanize Collective, creator of Brand IDQ Identity Framework, and co host of Breaking the Bottleneck podcast. And she's a master at turning brand identity into a decision making engine, which I so want to see in the world. We are diving into a controversial conversation today. Can a personal brand actually become a cage? We are debating the difference between marketing and branding and why we need to stop building brands and start raising them. Get ready for some real talk. Charlie, I've been looking forward to this conversation, so let's dive in and welcome to the show. All right, Charlie, as I said, we were speaking before we started recording that when people hear your hot take, they're going to drop their coffees. So I really want to start there. For the uninitiated, Charlie's hot take is that your personal brand is going to be your biggest limitation. Whoa. So, this is you are the anti-stance of the market, and I really want to learn from you, know from you. How did you come to this? And of course, it's coming from experience, but like, what's your journey been to coming to this stance, this stake, this narrative? Tell us, tell me, tell the audience.
yeah, sure. I mean, there's a couple of ways I came around to it. One being that my husband, he is a anti-social media guy.
Okay.
And when I was pregnant with my first son, we had a hard sit down where he said, I'm not having you put our kids on social media. I'm not having you use them in your marketing. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't do that. And so it really got me thinking about, like, what are the limitations of personal brand, and how do I create something else that's equally as enticing, right? And in equally as emotionally resonant, right? And
Mm.
then I really started to do that for myself and for my own business. And then as I started to work with founders, not so much not at the beginning of the business when it's like, I don't know what my brand is, but I need to create one. And I was having that tug of war with them that, like, let me create something for you that's more than just a logo, like that
Yeah.
brand argument. Um, we started to look at, okay, I am basically sitting down, my team is sitting down with these founders, and we're interviewing them and we're teasing all the things they know about their brand. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple things that happen. One is that sometimes what's revealed by that process is a brand that makes the founder uncomfortable, like what the market needs the brand to be in order to be effective, to be differentiated, makes them feel personally like uncomfortable. They're like, I don't know if I can really, that doesn't feel authentic to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we started having those kinds of conversations. Then we have these conversations with founders where it's like, okay, in order to scale your business to the next level, you're going to have to start delegating more things. And that's going to have to be things that have a customer impact. Like, you can't just delegate all your admin and be everywhere all the time, talking to everyone, doing every point of outreach, doing every customer engagement, like, and feeling like in order to not have the house burned down, like, you have to be the be all end all. Well, I set this precedent that I am the be all end all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all of my business, right? These are these clients I have that are like, all of my business growth is based on relationships with me. And that's a big problem. It's not that you shouldn't have a personal brand. Like,
Right.
everyone has one. If you think you don't, surprise, you do. Just like pay better attention, because it's running the show and you're just following along, and maybe that's not the direction you want it to go. And every person inside of an organization, no matter how big or how small, is going to inherently have a personal brand. The question is, when it's time for the business to grow to a place shifting from founder led to team driven, and there's things like direct outreach that need to happen, there's things like client sales calls that need to happen, there's client onboarding that needs to happen. Are you creating a situation where as soon as people come into the fold, come to the other side of the curtain, they have an expectation of meeting you, being with you, having access to you, and you're immediately breaking that expectation by saying the only way I can sustain this is to put all these other people in charge of all these things. And right out of the gate, there's broken trust. And it's not like it's so offensive that you have a team, but you didn't set the expectation that there was going to be other people in the customer experience journey, right? And so then we start to look at, okay, how do we create a brand that actually why is a personal brand so appealing? Because you don't really have to think that hard about it. You can just show up and be whoever you want. Well, that has limitations too, right? Limitations around privacy, limitations around oversharing.
Yeah.
That, like what you want to share isn't always what the business needs you to share. And what the business needs you to share sometimes is going to push you. And so just like, I use a lot of parenting metaphors in this, but like, just like a child is of you, they are not you.
Yeah.
And a parent who refuses to let their child, individuate from them and become their own person, have their own relationships, have their own opinions, have their own boundaries, like that never ends well.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I think the same, I think the same is true for brand. And so, I don't think that it's one or the other. I think it's really important to have both.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to grow something with the intention of scaling and you're not just building like a lifestyle business, where you're an influencer, no shade. But if you're trying to be something other than a figurehead business, you need to have something other than a figurehead brand.
Oh my God, Charlie, so many thoughts, so many things I want to speak on this. And why I'm so excited to talk to you about this is because very recently, so I have these brand voice workshops that I do, and I had one of the participants, asking me a question which stopped me in my tracks because she's like, you know what? I have my own personal brand and then I sell jewelry. So, the brand voice should be for which? And I had a very, my jaw dropped and I'm like, what are you trying to be? Are you trying to be an influencer who has these brand deals and that's that's why you need the followers and your personal brand? Or are you wanting to sell this jewelry and you need buyers for the jewelry? Like, it's something that is so imperative for you to decide before you start showing up. Because what I am also gathering from the things that I'm seeing online is like people, the proponents of personal brand who are like go heavy on it, over index on it for your business, are the people who have a huge team supporting them to do this. As you correctly said, right? Like behind the curtains, there is a whole team functioning for them so that they can go over index on their personal brand while their team is handling the show, running the business. So, and then where is that balance so that the people who cannot afford to have such a big team or are still in their nascent journey of pre-seed or pre-funding and trying to build a brand, they are getting influenced by this entire personal brand strategy and going so over indexing so much on it that, as you said, like how many places can you be, right? And I love the parenting analogy because that is exactly what I was going to say, because I know you have kids, I have a boy, and we want them to be independent after a certain point. Of course, the birthing to a stage where they're still toddlers is when you want to hold on to it. So I think in the founder's journey, that's what they need to kind of look at, that where is your brand? If you're just birthing it, you cannot, like, yes, you need that personal brand, but you also need to slowly start bringing that balance in. And that's my next question for you, is that there is this conflict between emotional storytelling to this logical reason why I should buy, right? There is this
Hmm.
conflict. And emotional storytelling is playing heavily on the personal brand, right? Like, this is why I created it. This is why I built this because I did blah, blah, blah. And then there is the reason why you should buy it, which is your logical side of the product. Like, why am I better than others? So, in your experience working with your clients, where do you see that balance shifting a little bit? Or like, how do you approach for that balance to shift in a way that is not losing on the connection, but is also working on the logic?
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of like the storytelling movement, one of the things that I am really interested in is the difference between an individual and a collective story,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the brand has its own stories. And while
Right.
you're the founder and you're the only, like if you're a solo and you don't have a team, like that's either case studies or behind the scenes, like the struggle is real studies, or it's like I'm in my life, I'm, walking down the street, forced metaphor stories, right? Those are like three, kind of like the three buckets. And
Yeah.
then all of those really, if leveraged well, will lead into that more hard logical, it opens the gate, it captures attention for you to present the rest of the logic. And then of course people just make buying decisions based on emotion, even if they've decided that they've tricked themselves into thinking that they made it in this logical. My husband is a logical guy, my mother is a logical guy. It's a
Mm-hmm.
logical woman.
Yeah.
And they have these illusions that they're making these like completely objective logical decisions, but like,
Yeah.
I don't think anything is truly objective. And like if it wasn't for the emotional piece, so it's like, who is telling the story? Why are you telling the story? You're telling the story so that you can prime the person to make the decision once they have,
Mm.
got to that point where they want to make that logical thing. But I think it's also like when you have the personal brand versus the company brand, um, when you have a company brand, especially if you have people, like you can tell all the stories of the people in the orbit. You can tell all of a sudden customer testimonials, those are stories. Client, staff experiences, those are stories. Um, and partners, investors, people in your orbit, it opens up all this other. I mean, here we are on a podcast, right? Telling each other stories, right?
Yeah.
Opens up all this other way to see things from different perspectives. And the more perspectives you have, if you're being strategic about which ones you put forward, which ones you center
Mm.
on, is going to make
Yes.
it easier for other people to see themselves in the brand, right? Versus not only having your perspective. And I think that's one of the things that gets like really tricky with founder led brands is that we just have this like we
Tunnel
can get
vision.
really stuck in our own perspective, right? And so just to
Mm.
start to think about like even if you're not sold on the fact that you want like a corporatized brand where like the logo is the face because people have all these misconceptions that you can't create an emotionally resonant. People can bond with a brand. We see it all the time. Historically, it's the
Yeah.
norm, right?
Yeah.
Like can you name a single person who works at one of the big brands that you shop from regularly? Like, do you know who
Starbucks.
works at yeah, do you know who works at Starbucks? Do you know who works at Lego? Do you know who, I mean, Patagonia is a bad example because we all know him because he really did this masterfully, right? But like most
Donation.
of the big companies, you know what they're not doing? They're not spending their day on LinkedIn telling stories about their personal
Yeah.
life to get business. Like they're not doing that. So the people who really are, I think, pushing this narrative are the platforms that want you addicted to them and the people who are selling personal brands, and no shade on you trying to like
Yeah.
sell your thing. But like what I'm trying to sell is the idea that you can actually, if you understand character development and you understand emotional buying decisions and you understand attachment theory, you
Yeah.
can create a psyche that everybody in the brand's orbit can identify with. The customers can feel like they're part of it. The
Mm.
staff can feel like they're part of it. And the founder
Mm.
can feel like it's not beholden to them and they can step back and take back some of their identity and have those boundaries that keep them from burning out or, being a
Yeah.
slave to their creation. So I don't know if that really directly answers your question, but
No, it does
I think it
totally, because
did.
I think that's no, it does, because that's a view that is rarely being spoken about in the online space, because obviously everyone is trying to sell a narrative of what works, and and very rightly that where are the boundaries for that, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the whole question, where you want to today, probably you are in a stage of life where you are this founder led brand with zero responsibilities, and you are this, you've got the funding and all of that stuff, but like 10 years from now, if you were to grow this brand, how does that happen, right? So
Hmm.
I love the fact that you say we don't build brands, we raise brands. Like, oh my gosh, that just gave me such goosebumps, because again, as I said, my entire episode with you is like a debate. Like, I'm not having this kind of conversation with anyone, so I'm just so excited, because you are breaking so many narratives. You're saying we don't create a brand, we don't build a brand, we raise them. So what do you mean by this? And also, how early do you adopt this if you are a founder led brand?
Yeah, great. So, I mean, when I when I first started this work, my background's actually in psychology and dance performance, and I kind of fell into the gig space trying to not be tied down, and then I fell into the online business space through the gig space, and one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I was living in South Jersey, where my family's from. Like, what am I going to do in this broken economy? Oh, I'll make websites for local businesses. So I
Yeah.
started doing website design for the businesses I had grown up patroning
Mm-hmm.
way before digital, right? Like, I've been
Okay.
going to these businesses since I was like 4 years old. I know
Wow.
the owner. I have a very personal relationship with these businesses.
Okay.
But you look at their website and it's nothing. It's like nothing like what you experience in person. So I'm like, I can help these people like make better websites that aren't an insult to their future customers. Like, it's like insulting. It's like a slap in the face to potential customers to have to navigate these horrible websites. So I'm working with them and I'm realizing like people just don't really understand how to translate what they're doing well in person into digital. Like, when we start to take the intangible things and try to make them tangible, even if it's like a intangible digital thing, like we start to use that logical side of our brain too much
Yeah.
and it starts to break. And, and we start building assets. We
Hmm.
start building expressions of brand. And then we start calling that brand, right?
Hmm.
And when I was building assets and people were paying me to build their assets, and then I was saying, hey, 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 back up. We need to work on your brand so I know what to put in this asset. I need to know how to shape it and what to put on it and the colors and the words, right? Then I'm building this project and they're like, oh, brand is a thing that gets built. Oh, now it's done.
Right.
And then they put it in a desk or they put it on the internet or they put it and they don't live it, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, like, especially we work with service-based businesses, right? So like founder-led, service-based, where the question is not how do I design a website to match my brand or how do I design a piece of merchandise, but it's how do I get my people to evoke and activate the essence of my brand's personality in every interaction they have with each other and the customers,
Right.
right? It's an embodiment
Hmm.
practice, not a design challenge, right? And both are important, but I'm more interested in the former. And so I think when you're, a new founder, it's like being really clear on like the what we call the core motive, the motivation of why you want the business to exist. Like, why does it exist?
Yeah.
Not what are you going to sell, not even what like pain point are you going to solve, but like, do you want to change people's behavior? Do you want to liberate people from something? Do you want to create social bonds? Do you want to, bring
Mm.
order to the chaos? These are kind of the categories that we have in our model. Um, and every decision should be informed by that. And so, like, when it's first happening, it's not like, okay, I'm going to go and like make all these expensive assets. I think that's a bad choice. I think it's like, how can I live this way? How can I show up this way? What do I need to do every day to evoke ours is order, to, create more order in the world that makes people feel safe, cared for, and, makes them see things a little bit differently. How do I do that? What are that habits? What are the behaviors? So like early on, I think it's not about like building something out here. It's about choosing how you show up.
Right.
And some of that is going to be how you show up in your regular daily life is going to come through. And of course, but some of that's going to be, okay, now I need to sit at my desk and I need to like turn on my best part of myself that's most relevant
Mm-hmm.
to what I'm trying to do here, which is what we do for everything, right? We do that.
Yeah.
You parent, you're a different person when you're parenting than when you're on a date with your husband, than when you're, talking to your mother. Like you have a role, and that role has certain ways that you are. And like
Yeah.
everybody on the team needs to be able to be that, like to like put that character on. And the idea that it
Mm-hmm.
like isn't inauthentic because it's a character, I think is a really important point to drive home. It's an
Yeah.
intentional activation of a way of being for
Yeah.
a purpose, right?
Exactly.
That keeps everybody, it's, you go to church, you're a different person. Hopefully you're an integritous person. Like you're not a
Fake. Yeah.
mental person, but like you're gonna manage your behavior differently, right?
Mm.
And I feel like
Yeah.
that way that we manage the behavior is what I think brand really is,
Yes.
at its core. And that's not something that you can just like create, build, and like have. It's something that you have to practice. It's something you have to show up
Mm.
for. It's something that evolved over time and is informed by itself. It's a feedback loop,
Feedback
right?
loop.
And so that's
Yes.
why I say you have to raise it, because like you have to continue to engage with it. You have to continue to show up for it, be in relationship to it, give it feedback, receive feedback. It's a relational practice of bringing a collective consciousness into the world,
Yeah.
in not unlike the way that raise a child, where you're in that feedback loop with them,
Yeah.
and you have to keep showing up.
Exactly. And I
It's
love
like,
what you say. I love what you say because this, I mean, I also do brand strategy. And my entire narrative is that no matter what you're doing, your audience is at the core of it, right? Like whatever character you archetype, personality that you're taking up, it is about how are you addressing that audience's desire. And
mhm,
and it's also I love that you said about the raising part of it because, for example, I do brand positioning, and I always tell my clients that, you know what, hold it loosely. Let's decide it to be this, and let it go in the market and live in the market, and let it come back, and then you further, because this is not an isolated
yeah,
process, which somewhat branding has become like an isolated. You hire a designer, they create a few things, you have that brand guide in your hand and done. Then you go back to the way you're living, the way you were doing business. And like that's exactly like how do you raise with it, because you're now the customer is gonna come back with their way of looking at you. So
mhm, mhm,
just the way you're saying you raise the brand, I just love the fact that you have really like kind of looked at the identity that people are trying to not manage in a way because they just decided this is it, and then we and everyone needs to accept it, but you've forgotten the fact that your audience is the real person who needs to like kind of get part of the story in the storytelling arc. Amazing. I love everything you say, Charlie. Like we can go on and on forever. My last question to you is that you and I both agree that marketing is not exactly equal to branding or the brand work that we do, right? Like there's so much about virality and like traffic and eyeballs, which is essentially the part that marketing plays. But I in my body of work now I've found that founders don't understand the difference. They directly want marketing without a brand, right? Like don't talk to me about all of this brand work. Tell me when I'm getting the traffic, tell me when I'm getting the leads, tell me like this, because we are all living in the economy of now, right? Like
mhm,
what
mhm,
is the
mhm,
result I get today by like working with you or working with the brand strategist. And I think as the brand strategist demographic is really decreasing, I can see that because unfortunately, as you clearly said, there is an intangible that you have to create to a tangible, right? And
Yeah.
marketing does that much easier way than branding. So how do we get founders to stop looking at their dashboards and Shopify dashboards and look make that equally important, but also like have a backup plan of like why is all this happening? So in your approach, how do you deal with that when a founder comes to you and say, no, 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 I don't need all of this stuff, this emotional buying and all of this. No, no, tell me when am I getting my first customer and my first lead? So what's your experience been on that?
I think it's really important to help people understand and remember. I mean, I think people know this on like a base level, but it's really easy to forget. We live in a society, if you live in the West, it's like capitalism, it's consumerism. And I think more than capitalism, it's become consumerism. Like we're we're so inundated with this idea that what we need is outside of ourselves. And
Hmm.
I think at the same time, I think people are then taught that like not to look to themselves, and I think that happens on an individual level. I think that happens on a community level. Like you look at economic development as a industry, like when the economy is broken in a place, the first thing the leadership does is look outside to
Yeah.
pull business in instead of like looking to what could we cultivate here, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of what I see with my clients and with brand work and the kind of tendency to look away from that is to think like, I don't have time to look inward because
Mm.
what's more valuable is out here and I need to get what's out here and bring it in. And if you've been in business like any time that the low hanging fruit, the people you already know, warm leads convert better than cold leads. New customers are great, but like return customers are more cost like are better. Like
Are better.
return customers are better.
100%. Yeah.
And you don't get the right customers unless you know who you are. It's like you
Mm.
can't go on a date and know that it's the right person unless you know who you are. And like you can't decide positioning is like, okay, I'm on a date. I need to see who am I? Who is this person? And like, is this a good marriage? Like, would
Yeah.
this make a
A
good
good fit.
marriage? Or would this make a good fling? Like, you need to know the angle at which you're approaching the date. And like, if you don't know that and you go into a date and you're like, oh, this person is great, but they're looking for a fling and you're looking for a marriage, even if you both think you're great, that's going to go badly.
And
Right. Like,
absolutely.
and that's what I think. I think so many, people want to start at the result
Mm.
and with social now we see other people's claimed results but we don't see what's going on behind the scenes and like it's easy to sell tactics, it's not easy to sell branding. Is brand uh, brand to me is self-awareness for businesses.
Oh my gosh. That's
you
beautiful.
can't you can't go into the world and find what you need if you don't know yourself enough to know what you need.
Mm.
And like, you need clients, yes, but you need the right clients. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What is the client that's going to not haggle with you, not ghost you, not reschedule 15 times, not, have buyer's remorse, come back, send friends. Like
Yeah.
that is the more cost effective customer to acquire, but it requires more attention and intention on the front end. And I think there's a lot of fear
Mm.
about like, and this is like a whole can of worms at the end here, but I think a lot of the examples of business success that we have in our
Face.
dashboard
Yeah.
are people who are doing yucky business.
Mm.
And branding is about, at least on some level, doing holistic, thoughtful, intentional business. And I think there's so much weird, perverted celebration of corrupt business on the public stage right now that it's really
Yes.
hard for people to trust
Mm.
that they can be themselves, that their business can be themselves and be successful. that compromising who you are, what you're about, isn't a prerequisite for success.
Mm.
I think that's a really hard thing for people to give in relationship to the idea that solutions are out here, not in here. I need to buy my way into solution.
Mm.
And I need to, pretty much decide if I care about how I feel now or if I care about how I feel later. And if I care about how I feel later, I better be willing to compromise how I feel now, as if the ends will justify the means.
Mm.
But the truth is that if you abandon brand on the front end, you're going to have a brand. It's just not going to be the one you wanted.
Yeah.
And it's not going to take you where you want to go.
You're making me cry.
You could end up in the same place, but the story you're going to be able to tell from that vantage point is going to be different. And it's not necessarily one you're going to be proud of.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll surprise you, but like just the idea that you can act with integrity, moral fortitude, human decency, and to survive in business, that you can be yourself in business. Like there's so much obsession with authenticity, but then you
made me
we
cry
don't.
because you're making me cry because I think today's podcast is a God's way of telling me that the work I'm doing, like I sorry about that. I
No
had no plans to
problem.
cry.
Bring it on, girl. Bring it on.
Because
Bring on the waterworks.
you're a fellow brand strategist, and just the way you speak is what I speak. But as you said, there is this perverted celebration of this need to be viral and this need to have this top of the frame, appearance of your brand, that people have forgotten soul. And I just struggle with this idea, and that's why I'm so happy I spoke to you today. Maybe God put you in my, because I just this morning I woke up and I'm like, is it even worth it? Like what I talk about brand substance, about like looking at your brand in like inwards and then outwards. Like, is it even worth? Does anyone even want that anymore? And my gosh, I didn't plan to cry, but like, thank you. You kind of like validated me in a way where my work is, is there are people like you out there, and there are people who want such work. So I don't know, from the bottom of my heart, I want to just say thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I think I think the customers want it. I think the customers want, I think if you can find a way to make people feel seen, heard, and valued, you will always have customers.
Yeah.
You will always have customers, and that is, I don't know a single business owner who is like, no, I don't. I mean, there are business owners, but I don't
Yeah.
personally know business owners who are like, I don't give a shit about my clients. I don't care about my customers. I just want to ring them for all they're worth.
Yeah.
Like people want to be well received. They want to be celebrated in both directions. And I think, the pressure that business owners feel to abandon the type of work that you and I do is not about not valuing it. It's like, it's feeling so much pressure to move faster than is humane. I mean, I think we've
Yes.
created this world that like everybody who's in it like is so ready to be rid of it that they're willing to automate everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Like what are we gonna do? It's like I used to say, like when everything was when everything was like, oh, everything's gonna be online. There's no retail, there's no in person, when we were in that phase.
Yeah.
And now everything's gonna be automated. But like I can go on Zappos and buy 5 pairs of shoes. But like if I don't have anywhere to wear my shoes, I'm not gonna buy them.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's people want things to do. People want relationships.
Yep.
And I think that's where personal brand, bringing it full circle, I think that's where personal brand gets it right.
Yep.
And we can create thoughtful, dynamic, collective identities that people can engage with where, it doesn't have to be all on one person's shoulder. It's not beholden to workaholic.
And as you said,
work
collective
work
consciousness.
addiction. I mean, I come from two work addicted parents, and that's been my journey, is trying to figure out how to like make this world work, give
Yeah.
my family the same things I had, but like be present for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the tension with AI and the human is like AI and the human leads and the brand, like all these things, they have to work together.
Together.
Or
Otherwise,
like there it
what are we going into?
yeah, like what nothing is going to be good in a silo. It just isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Oh, Charlie, thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, I can't even express enough gratitude on this conversation that we've had today, but I absolutely enjoyed it. I felt it in my bones. And maybe we'll do a part two where I will not cry.
Okay. Happy to do a part two. Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure
No,
to be
thank you for
here.
being here. So appreciated.